Well, first we need to ask ourselves, what is death?
Luke Belmar.
We have the choice to decide what we do with our lives.
An international man of mystery.
For me, it took me millions of dollars lost to learn what I've learned and what
Lucanetz, pudgy penguins.
I was like, damn, what am I doing with my life? However, if I die and God was not real, then I lived my life the right way.
And
right?
Lucanetz, who's massively scaled in ecom, then popped over to the Web3 space.
I'm striving for immortality in my legacy. Like, I want to be remembered for thousands of years after I die, and I want my impact to live forever. And when I die, I want it to be like when Kobe died. Like, I want the world to stop.
Hey guys, so before this video starts, I just wanted to give a bit of context about who I am and why this video makes me look like I'm a lot younger than I actually am. So that video was filmed about 2-3 years ago, and now I back then I was grown up in a little small town in Wales, and now I've moved to London and I drive a Porsche and I live all of this lifestyle and do everything that I wanted to do when I was younger. At that age, speaking to these guys of this net worth and of this value, and they sort of really did help shape my life as I was growing up. But the reason I'm telling you all of this is because this podcast was me when I was a lot younger, so there's a bit of cringe and there's a bit of weird questioning. The whole red pill matrix stuff didn't even exist back then, so I just want you to take that in. But regardless, it's a great podcast. Luke Belmar, Lucanetz, it's a crazy lineup, and I hope you guys definitely enjoy it.
Something that intrigued me massively about you, Luca, was you are one of the only people in the ecom space who have a course that doesn't promote it whatsoever, which is so interesting to me. So you have an Instagram for it, you post it, it's completely organic. I haven't seen you make ads for it. I haven't seen you try and grow it through TikTok or whatever way possible, which is so interesting to me. I'd love to know your idea behind that.
Yeah, so the thing is with the course is I solely made it to help people. Like, I didn't make it as like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make tons of money doing it. Like, obviously I charge for it, but I feel like because my time is valuable and I feel like people are learning a lot of things in that program that might necessarily save them. You know, for me, it took me millions of dollars lost to learn what I've learned and what I put there. And so, but the intent there was never like, yo, like become a course guy. Like, I just got so many DMs on the daily basis, like, yo, dude, help me. And like, I do want to help people. And so eventually I was just like, dude, like every time somebody DMs me, I'm just going to send them to this Instagram, and like, this is where the course will be. And if you want it, you want it. And if you don't, you don't. And it was really important to me. Like, I always told myself, and probably I don't see myself changing my mind here, but I will never run ads to it. If it grows because of word of mouth and because people are making money because of it. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And so that's kind of where I stand with it. I'm more focused on like the trading side of things, because I feel like if there was anything that I was going to push, it would be more so that than the commerce side. Because just the traction that I've gained on the trading side and seeing everybody's success is like way more like immediate in terms of the results. And so that's just like, if I were to grow any of them, it'd be the trading. But the commerce side of things, it's like completely like, I didn't want to like kind of ruin my reputation and be like the course guy now. I kind of always, that's like the reason why I hadn't done it for so many years. But it's entirely just like, yo, if you want it, here it is. If not, like, I'm not going to shove it down your throat and force you to buy it.
That is amazing. That is so purely word of mouth. You touched on something, you touched on help. And help is a very interesting topic. So I dropship personally, and I come from a pretty small city, and I get tons of messages every single day, you know, because I do flaunt results. I get tons of messages every single day like, bro, put me on, you're doing bits, you're doing this, you're doing that, can you help me out, can you do this? And you touched on help, which is very interesting to me. Did you get any help when you started? Did you follow a program? Did you follow a course?
Yeah, so the first guy who got me into this was the Jet Set scammer. So Jet Set Fly was like the guy that I saw. Like, I think the moving moment for me there was like, he had an ad that was like, my little brother made $5,000 a day. What are you doing with your life? And I was like, damn, what am I doing with my life? So I bought this course. It was probably the worst course I've ever bought. Like, so lazy, so poorly done. But it taught me, it didn't really teach me anything, but it showed me that Shopify and a Burlo were a thing. And I didn't know that was a thing. And so once I found out that Shopify and a Burlo was a thing, I kind of took it from there, because the concept is we can sell anything at any given time, you know, and just like move products. So to me, in my mind, I'm like, wait, I can become a home decor business owner tomorrow. I can become a, you know, a fitness owner product tomorrow. Like, and so that part intrigued me, and the rest was history from there. But I bought that course. It sucked. It was awful. I don't like the kid because of it, because I think somebody, you know, who's selling somebody on something, if you're going to do the extras and like push the fucking ads and everything, like at least have an integrous product, which he absolutely did not. So if I ever meet the kid, I'll let him know. And I think, you know, karma's done his due with him. And so like, that's just kind of, you know, how I started and, you know, how I'm here.
People, it seems like you're a very independent person, Luca, and people like yourself intrigue me a lot when it comes to dropshipping. You're obviously doing much better than a lot of the people out there that are following mentors, gurus, or whatever. And I wanted to know, I can't call it systematic, but people like yourself that do so well on their own terms, they don't listen to the they don't listen to the natural gist of things. They're like, oh, this product's doing well, so I'm going to start pushing more ads to this product. Like, I don't know how to describe it. There's a lot of marketers and there's a lot of people in dropshipping that are overthinking the process, in my opinion. What do you think of... do you treat dropshipping... The question is, do you treat dropshipping as a genuine business, as in it's a genuine brand? Like, if I had 500 lawnmowers in the backyard, like if I was dropshipping lawnmowers, if I had 500 lawnmowers in the backyard, would you treat it like that? Like, or was it like...
Yeah, so I get what you're trying to say. And like, I think with any business, you've got to immerse yourself. Like when I run one of these businesses, I like pretend like I have 100,000 in inventory and like I'm the last, you know what I mean? Like you have to take that approach. What people don't understand, and I think a lot of drop shippers like fail to kind of accept this, but like if you're a good drop shipper, you're not necessarily a good entrepreneur. You know what I mean? And like there's a difference. And so like encompassing drop shipping and treating it like a business owner and treating it like an entrepreneur is a different approach. Like if I like, it's not that hard to set up a website, run ads, make money, set up a VA, and then just like sit back and collect cash until your processing gets whacked. Like it's not difficult to do. Like what's hard about this business is actually being able to like scale it and consistently do it. And so for me, that kind of like, I always took the approach a little bit differently, where it's like, okay, our testing method is very drop shippy based. And like our first couple orders, we kind of take the drop shipping approach. But once we find a winning product, like I want to make it look and feel like it's a real business as much as possible. And I think that's where like a lot of people go wrong. They kind of treat it like, oh, like once something does like $10, $15, $20,000, you've obviously got something. People, rather than treating it like a real business, just kind of get complacent or get lazy or get ungrateful, whatever it may be, and then just kind of drop the ball, which is why the space is getting like pretty difficult.
Do you think that the space is getting, and this is a personal theory of mine, and I'm just wondering if you agree, do you think the space is getting much more pump and dumpy, where people just create stores and
that's the bad part, right? Like the bad part is like there's too many kids not fulfilling and doing these things, and it's coming and crashing down. Like people think like the Apple privacy thing is sure, but like, dude, like there are so many people not fulfilling and hurting and scamming and doing bad things that like this thing's getting like, it's getting tougher and tougher. And like, unless you have a brand that has like real brand recognition, real trust, like it's a pain in the butt, you know? And like PayPal's not somebody I like to do business with, but PayPal's huge because of that trust factor. Somebody knows if they pay something on PayPal, it's nothing but, you know, a couple clicks of the button and they get their money back. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, I really encourage, and like in anything that I try to push, I really encourage like people like having some integrity when you do this business, because it's like anybody can steal, but that quick money, like that stuff never lasts and never sustainable. And it's like, I rather, you know, even in hindsight now, like if you were to ask me what I know now, like, okay, sure, we've made tens of millions of dollars drop shipping, but knowing what I know now, if I could rewind time, I would have made less money these last 4 years and rather focus on one brand and one business than doing like 100 different businesses, which is what we've done the last 4 years. And so like a lot of people like that's the better way, you know what I mean? And people just get blindsided. Obviously you're hungry and people are in desperate situations, but you have to have some clarity even in your moments of, you know, of despair, if that makes sense.
That is a very, very interesting point that you raised there, that you'd prefer to spend 4 years developing one brand. Have you thought about it? Are you in the process of doing it now, or?
Yeah. So we are. So I'm working on one brand. Really going to be like the one e-commerce company I focus on, and so we're going to build on that and get that.
Will you connect it to your personal brand, or are you just gonna
like,
are you gonna do something like Faz did, where there's Sweet Dreams in his personal brand, or?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm going to show it, like I'm going to be proud of it. Like in the beginning I want to build it, like to get gamer gear where it's going to take tens of millions of dollars. Like it's what it's going to be. So like, until like, I'm like extremely proud of that product, like I might not showcase it every single day, but there'll be a day, whether we generate the money on ourselves or raise a Series A or whatever it may be, like there'll be a day where it will be built the way I want it to be built, and we'll go from there.
Interesting. Luca, so I was watching your, to go away from business, and I feel like this was much more interesting because I watched both your podcasts with Scott Hilsey, and you touched on spirituality, God, all these things in the second one, and it was very interesting. It was very interesting to listen to or watch, and I'm agnostic personally, and you raised a very interesting point where you said it's not harmful to it doesn't harm you, so why not? You know, like, and that really stuck with me, and I'm still in the process of trying to think about it properly. So,
of course, and to that point, there's something called Pascal's wager, right? And basically, to sum it up, Pascal's wager is pretty simple. He says, I rather die. Like if I die and I believed in God, right? Like, okay, then great, go to heaven, and you know, it was awesome. And then if I die if I die and God was real, you know what I mean? And I believed in him, well, then I go to heaven and I do all these great things. However, if I die and God was not real, then I lived my life the right way, right? So like, where can you go wrong, right? Because at the end of the day, like God, like believing in God it does more good for you than it does bad. Like, and though like there's like even the scientific argument side of things, like in the Scott Hilsey podcast, like if you don't know 100% of science, then you can't 100% say God does not exist, whether you're agnostic or atheist, whatever it may be. Like to be definitive about something and to use science as like a proof, you need to be 100% definitive about what science is. But we're discovering parallel universes every day, different universes, different quantums. Like there's so many different variables here, like you just don't know. And I rather be on the side where I believe in God, I do good by people, I follow, you know, the good things that believing in God does for you and what a lot of religions preach. I'd rather go down that route than, you know, die and then realize, oh man, I didn't believe in God. God was real. And now I'm going to hell, which, you know, is an eternity of suffering. Like the risk reward is like, it's like the odds. When I'm a man of odds. Like when I trade a stock, it's like, what are the odds of it going up and what are the odds of it going down? Like that's how I try to treat everything. Like what are the pros? What are the cons? And I make my decision based on that. And so the God discussion is really like, what are the pros? What are the cons? And you move forward.
Here's the I don't have a problem with religion itself. The problem I have with religion is I think that religion is a great tool for hope, for people at 70, 60, people even 30, 40, 20, whatever. It's a great device for hope. Now, as you said, there's a lot more pros than cons. My problem with religion is the way it gets used. The way that you can have an excuse for doing something doing something very, very irrational, in the name of this God, in the name of this God, in the name of that God. unfortunately, if you did those things and you did not have a reason to, you didn't have a God to preach about, you didn't have anything about that, you would just be deemed a psychopath. But the stereotype that is given once somebody believes and says in the name of blah blah blah, blows up somewhere, shoots up somewhere, does something awful, does something against humanity, it boggles my mind that in a 21st century sort of society we still accept we can still give reason to these people. I don't know how to we can still give a reason for these people to give off their awful mindsets.
I know what you're talking about. And before I believed in God, I always thought that God was something that people made up to make themselves less afraid of death. Like that was my logic before I was a God-fearing man. I said, look, like I understand this, but you guys are just afraid to die. And, you know, believing in God makes dying a little less scary, you know, because you think you're going from one world to another. And that's always what I thought, like in the beginning, right? And like regards to people doing things in the name of God, I can promise you there's a lot more people who do good things in the name of God than bad things in the name of God. And so my main answer to your question and to your point is like I don't let other like I told somebody this in the podcast I did before this with Arab, and I basically told him like I'm a man of God before I'm a man of religion. Like, and I think that's important. You know what I mean? Like I my faith is to God before it is to Islam or Christianity or Judaism, before anything. You know what I mean? And like I think for myself before I let others, you know, things think with me. Like I resonated with Islam the most, but there's things in Islam I disagree with. Like, and just because it's in the Quran, does it mean I'm going to follow it? No, of course not. Like I'm going to pick and choose, like what I think is the right way of living, you know, based on the information given to me. And like, I'm not going to be hard-headed. I'm not going to be closed-minded. I'm going to be open-minded at all times. And I'm going to let the knowledge come to me. And I'm going to, at the end of the day, like I'm a free human being. Like you can't tie me down and like make me do things that I don't want to do. Like I'm free first. And like, that's why, like I said in the previous podcast, it hasn't released yet, but I'm a man of God before I'm anything else, you know, like, and to me, like I've read both the Torah and the Bible and the Quran. Like we all believe in the same God. It's the semantics of, oh, Jesus is the prophet or Muhammad is the prophet. Like all that little minutia is where the religions differ and disagree. But at the end of the day, we all believe in one God and one higher power. And that's who I believe in. I believe in him first, and then everything else, you know, comes second.
Another problem you raise with religion, it's not a pick and choose thing most times. It's the thing where I believe in Christianity, and like I don't believe in Christianity, but if I believe in Christianity, I also have to be pro-life, or I also have to not have sex until I'm married, or like I can believe in God, I can care about God, I can love God, God can love me, but if I'm born into a Christian household and my parents are so abiding by these rules, the pick and choose thing that you said, it's impossible. It is, and this is the main. And I think we're arguing the same point here. You are saying that God is the higher being. He is God, and religion is separate from God. And this is exactly what I'm saying. The religion is so manipulated because it's in the hands of us humans, and I think that God is, as you said, God is ruleless, lawless. Why do we believe in these laws? Who created these laws? Was it genuinely God? Do you believe in a book that was created by God, or do you believe in God? Do you believe in a higher power? That's basically what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, so I mean, like, look, like your point to like the family situation, like I look at that as more of like a social problem versus like to me, let's say I'm a man of Islam, right? Like I'm not going to force my kids to be children of Islam. Like, I would love them to be, you know what I mean? Or like, I'm going to let them pick and choose. So, I mean, like the parent situation, I think it's a cultural thing. And like, I guess because I never grew up in a religion and I kind of found it afterwards, I guess my opinion and my take on it is different. And this is still something that I'm kind of necessarily new at. I think though, like, I think religion does more good than harm. Like, okay, it can kind of box you in, and I can understand where somebody would like come with that thesis. But at the end of the day, like, it was important for me to read every single, at least the main 3 books that I knew of. And like, each preaches like kindness and goodness and selflessness. And, a lot of the things, like, let's say not having sex towards marriage, like if you really understand like how detrimental sex can be to your personal and professional life, like I wish I was raised in a society or in a household where sex before marriage like was something that like we didn't look against. Like that to me is like awesome. Like I'm not against that. Now obviously, like, to each his own, but I don't think a lot of the things that are a lot of the things that in these religions that people follow are bad. I mean, there's a couple that like I disagree with, but even though I disagree with them, do I think they're bad? Not necessarily, And so, I mean, it's all subjective, but it really just based on what type of human you are and who you are inside. And like, that's why I always encourage people to like find what works for you. Like I found what works for me, and, it's up to other people to think for themselves and find for what works with them.
I guess people love comfort, Luca. I think that people like the idea of, science. It's just a thing where I think Ricky Gervais pointed out this argument. He said that if you burn all the science books, if you throw all the science books, all the science discoveries, everything that we have and burn it and do whatever with it to ruin it and completely wipe it from the next generation's mind, in 20, 30 years, they will still come to those same conclusions. But with religion, if you burn it now, if you burn all the books now, in 20, 30 years, we're going to have completely new Bibles, completely new Qur'ans, completely new, that's the main sort of argument. And I guess most humans are nurtured and they're created for comfort. They love comfort. They enjoy comfort. And, this comfortable mindset that we have that, science is science, God is not known of, God could be not real, God could be this, religion could be this. It's very interesting to me. I'm still agnostic, as said. I'm still trying to find my religion or my God, as you said. I've delved deep into spirituality, the law of attraction, the vibrations, the universe. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you have any thoughts on spirituality, manifestations, attractions?
I mean, I think spirituality and like religion and all that stuff is one and the same. I think the difference between somebody who's spiritual and somebody who's religious is accountability. I think religion makes people accountable, and people who are more spiritual, like there's less accountability in regards to like rules to follow, right? So a spiritual person believes in a higher power, a religious person believes in a higher power. The difference is a religious person, like rules in which you have to abide by based on the religion, and like spirituality, there is not that. There's just like goodness and good vibes and good energy. And, one religion, you do something wrong, you're accountable by the book or by the rules in which the religion is based off of. If you're spiritual, you break a rule, then unless you're breaking a law, there really are no rules, so there's nothing to break. And so that's, I think, the identification between the two that I found. And, with that, like, I'm spiritual, like, to me, it's like all one and the same. I'm a spiritual person. I play my Palo Santo, my sage, like I do all that stuff. And so it's kind of one and the same for me.
Interesting. Rules. Do you think that God would create a free society with rules? Do you think that he would just leave the humans to do what they wanted?
I think God has created us to be exactly who we are. And so like whatever we are now and whoever we are now is like what God intended it to be. if he wanted it any other way, it would be another way. He's God, he's the Almighty, you know, and so that's my stance there.
Very interesting. So, in that case, God wants there to be child rapists. God wants there to be people lighting up foster care homes. Like, I don't understand your point. I'm sorry, Luca, if I'm out of place.
No, I love it because you're asking the difficult question. 100%. 100%. And like everything's intended. Understand, we're here in a physical realm for a small amount of time, right? The eternity lasts in the other life, right? In the spiritual life. And, you know, when your consciousness goes higher, right? Like if God intended you to, you know, get raped or whatever it may be, I always say God tests people he loves the most, and life isn't always the most fair. Yes, there's people in Africa starving and there's Syrians getting bombed on, but there needs to be a balance. Things can't be eternally good. That's what heaven is for, right? So if you're in kind of purgatory, which is what I think earth is, right? The middle between heaven and hell, you need to have a little bit of both. You need to have a little bit of hell to understand where you don't want to go, and you have to have a little bit of heaven to understand where you do want to go. And so that would be my argument there.
So if there can't be eternally good, why is heaven a thing? Do you think there's even laws in heaven? Do you think people have...
No. Heaven will be, heaven is eternally good. So I'm just saying there can't be eternal goodness here. Like everything can't just be perfect here, because if it was, then we'd just be in heaven and we'd be there, right? So like, to me, if hell is below us and heaven is above us and we're in the middle, well, then you need a little bit of both, right? And so you can understand like what's what and how's how. And it's like, why does the tide come up every time at 8 p.m.? It's just the way the world works. Like, why does a gazelle get eaten by a lion? Like, well, it has to survive. You know what I mean? A lion has to survive. Like, it's just human nature, and it's how God intended it to be. And so that's my opinion there.
Interesting.
But I love the tough questions because a lot of atheists and agnostics would have this argument. So keep it coming.
I'll keep it coming. Okay, so you say that for example, a tiger needs to eat a deer to survive. That's a animalistic traits that we have, that we also have. But do you think that a man needs to rape a child to survive? Do you think that God, do you honestly, and this is I'm being fully honest, and these are questions that I have for people, and you seem very obliged to like someone good to question, because normally people don't know what they're talking about when it comes to these things, and I hope you can agree. Normally people just grow up in these households, they only know the word of God or the word of Christianity, and they only know the word of the Bible, so they just agree and disagree with no backing points. But backing to the point, do you genuinely and honestly believe that God would intend a child to be raped and killed for the parents to go and identify the body, be physically tortured until the end of dawn, and never ever recover from that? I cannot understand a God that isn't a psychopath, if that is the case.
So understand, right? We're in the middle between heaven and hell. And so where things go bad, you're dealing with the devil, and where things go good, you're dealing with God. And so it's a constant battle between good and bad. And so where I see a guy raping, you know, a baby, for example, right? If God was, you know, like there's an intermediary, right? Like, so if somebody does that, then I would argue that's the devil's doing, right? And if God let that happen, like God can't always interfere in every single thing. And if they don't die, then like I said, God tests people he loves the most. And like that would be my take there. I really feel like if this was a perfect world, we'd be in heaven. And if it was a awful world, we'd be in hell. And I think we're right in the middle. And so like, does he find joy in that? Of course not. Like I feel like we're all his children, and he finds pain every time that we find pain. But life isn't just like a straight trajectory upwards, right? Like there's natural selection, there's Darwinism. Like we are animals at the end of the day, though we have higher consciousness. Like there's still this innate being, like a baby cub will still get raped by a fucking like, you know, this is a animal kingdom here, you know what I mean? Like this is National Geographic on steroids. Like this is where we are. And so like that would be my answer towards that. I feel like we're just in the middle, and there's a balance. And like if everything was good, like I said, we would be in heaven, and if everything was bad, we would be in hell. And so there's a little bit of both. And anybody who's going through some stuff like I said, I feel like he tests us that loves the most.
Do you think that God depends on? Do you think that good depends on bad? Do you think that major good can't be accomplished by bad?
I think they come in waves. I feel like you can do good things can happen for a very long time. I just don't think like it's like the stock market, right? Like you go up, like your trajectory will go up, but you'll have little dips on the way, you know? And that's and same way down. Like if you're on a downtrend, you'll have a little ups on the way, but you're still in a downtrend. And so it's just a matter of like your perspective, you know?
Do you think there's an ultimate sin? Do you think there's something which you can't forgive?
In the book, it's, well, at least in Islam, it's not believing in God, I think, is the ultimate sin, and the only ultimate sin. God says that if you die a non-believer, you go to hell. And so I think Christianity, there's an exception there. I think I should ask Luke. Luke, yeah, you'd be good here. But hold on. You got to answer my question really quick. Hold on, I'm going to bring Luke out.
Oh, no.
No. Talk about a man of fucking religion. This guy.
I've spoken with him on this before.
Right. Yeah. He'll come eat this up. Yo, I have a question.
I was waiting to get
Okay.
If you're wondering how I went from that curly head weird kid to what I am now, we have a Discord group with over 40,000 members called discord.gg/smma. It's an amazing group where you can one-to-one interact with myself and my business partner Hermes. We've built so many agencies in that group, and the amount of results that are showing right here are incredible, and there's more where that came from. So if you go to that Discord, you can definitely check it out for yourself, and there is so much information in there, and I recommend you do definitely check it out.
If you die, if you're a Christian and you die a non-believer, are you still going to heaven?
Well, first we need to ask ourselves, what is death?
Okay, here you go. Let's know. Now we got a 2P.
Let me.
I mean, death in the physical form is real, yes.
Is it?
In the physical form, yes. In this body, it is.
Maybe.
Explain, elaborate. We're on
Right,
page.
so I've talked to you before,
Yeah,
right?
You have.
Yeah. So what I would say first of all is this idea of God, right? But what we forget is people have free will.
Mm-hmm.
So people have the ability to make decisions,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if not, we'd be robots.
Mm-hmm.
So God gives us, and it's this idea of God, right? It's what we call God. So the idea of God being a specific entity was attributed about 500 AD in the Tribune of Nicaea. You can look it up, and that's when they like tried to institutionalize God. But before, it was very much like nature driven. It was like connecting with the earth, connecting with like you're talking about animals. Like we are one with this world. Like we are connected. We're part of it. So when you look at free will, it's like we have the choice to decide what we do with our lives up to a certain extent, and you can't blame another entity for that decision making. So I liked what you said, the idea of like the constant battle between good and evil. And I think that is cyclical, right? Like it's like the yin yang, right? Like the two fish that are consistently chasing each other. It's a forever pattern that won't stop. So what I would tell people is when you look at these scenarios in life where you look at injustice and you're like, wow, who would allow this? We have this nature in us, just like we have this good side in us. We also have this terrible side in us. Like we all have a depraved side. When we like stop and we actually look at ourselves and we're honest, there's a lot of the stuff that we have inside where we're like, damn, I'm lacking. And we can't attribute that to a higher power because we can control, we can manage, we can transmit discipline in our daily life. Whereas, for example, like we've talked in the past, and it's like, there's habits and behaviors that we used to have that we've realized like that's my old nature. Like that is no longer in place for me to do. Why? Because I have the knowledge and the awareness and the spiritual, I would say, insight to see these things and be like, no, they're bad. But if you go to Africa, there's villages where there's these guys called jaguars, and they basically take the virginity of every woman in the village. That's part of their job description, and all of them have HIV. So all these little girls end up with HIV, but it's part of tradition. They don't know any better, right? Like you can say that, you can debate that they know any better, but you're also dealing with so many factors and nuances that's like, it's having like absolutes, like this is what it is. We don't know, bro. We don't know what's 10 feet under the ground from us right now. Like we don't know shit. And that we try to define God. It's a little complicated.
Luke, what is, can you describe good and bad? Do you think the good and bad is, do you think that bad is human created? Do you think that in our minds we've said, you know what, bad is this, good is this? If good was slaughtering babies and it was normalized, do you think that we'd...
So then you need to, and I'll leave after this.
No, of course.
It's the idea of, well, the judge and the witness can't be the same person, right? So for example, you look at Christians and they say, oh, well, what you're doing is wrong, okay? Or what you're doing is bad, but based on what standard? Based on the standard of what you believe in. So therefore, there is no absolute standard because nobody's absolutely correct. Now, we can all come to a unison agreement on certain things like, hey, don't self-impose yourself on other people. Don't self-impose yourself on animals. Take care of the planet. Don't lie. Be a good person. We understand these principles, but to say like, this is and this isn't, there's so many variables at play, in my opinion, that, for example, like killing is bad. Okay, perfect. But we can agree that it's wrong. But is it justified in certain scenarios? Potentially. But some people would be like, no, it's not justified. And that's when you kind of go into like this moral debate of like inconsistency, where I don't think there's an absolute. No, for sure. No.
You don't think so? You think that, sorry, I know this is the podcast of Luca, but this is another question for you, Luke.
Great. No, I love this guy.
We're
partners.
We're about to go to the moon together.
Yeah, dude. So, and he has a great opinion on this. So if we're on this topic, honestly, he's better versed than I.
We've talked about it so long.
Yeah.
Like, so we've talked about it all the time.
Did you, I know you research a lot into these sort of things, and I know that you're very, very well spoken, and you know what you're talking about. Do
I?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, if someone can talk for minutes on minutes about a thing and not waffle, and it makes sense in my head, of course. But anyway, I'm gonna stop the charming, and I'm gonna stop all that. Do you, after all this research, and we can say that you're more researched than an average bloke, would you say that good is still the laws of, for example, Christianity? Good is being selfless, being helpful, not like... So what's good? What is genuinely good in your opinion? What do you do that makes you feel like, I've done something good today?
I don't. I just live my life, right? So we have this idea that doing, like serving other people is like the ultimate purpose and goal. Why? Well, it feels good, sure, but that's the idea of reciprocity, right? That's an animalistic instinct. Right? Animals emit reciprocity. That's why we have that instinct in us of reciprocity. If you look at innate human traits, reciprocity is part of what we do, right? Somebody does something for you, you do it in return. But attributing morality to it isn't necessarily what I would consider yes or no, because here's the thing. What is Christianity? Right? So if you look at a Judeo-Christian perspective, how it was taught 2,500 years ago and what it is today, is completely deviated, right? You need to look into the King James Bible and understand that, hey, potentially there was books in there that were written that have been left out. In translation, right? Automatically in translation, for example, if Luca was trying to transmit this message in German, there would be miscommunication, which means the message wouldn't be transmitted perfectly. Why? So what makes you think that English in the 1600s is the same English that we have today, or that it wasn't skewed? So we look at all these things, that propaganda, all this stuff. What makes you think that that isn't included? So what I would tell people is live your life. I mean, Luca's seen a transition where I used to be very like dogmatic about a lot of stuff.
Super dogmatic. And he was like he was like the best Christian I ever met. Like in terms of somebody who followed the book, like I really looked up to him in terms of like, I had never met somebody my age who had followed the book so well and like knew it like the back of his hand. Like he knows this thing, like he knows his fucking body, you know what I mean? And so he's transitioned like to obviously have faith, but now it's like a different vertical, which he can explain further.
So what I would say is, and this is something I learned with Joffrey, is morality is not absolute. Why? Because in order for it to be absolute, it needs to apply consistently throughout all history to every single individual always. So you ask a single question, right? Just the institutional, like, why would a person try to institutionalize God? If God is worth worshiping, right? This entity, this energy, whatever you want to call it, that we can't explain, you want to attribute it to God. If you can explain God, then is he worth worshiping? If God fits in your 1 pound gray matter, is he worth it? To me, no. I want to be in awe of being able to go to New Zealand. Like, I was talking to him, like, we're going to Italy, we're doing the whole nine. I want to be able to sit in nature and be like, wow, like, I can bask in the greatness and the beauty of this. Like, we can all agree, I don't know, not everybody, but there's a lot of intelligent design. Like, there's a lot of intelligent design.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever it's attributed to or what it's attributed to, I don't know. But I love basking in the freedom that I can enjoy life at its fullest. And I like certain aspects. Like, there's certain things about Islam that I love, but there's certain things that I don't like, right? There's certain things about Christianity that I love. There's certain things that I don't like. I'll give you an example. Look at the structure of a church, okay? It's structured literally like a courtroom of a king, right? And in the front of the courtroom, you have the altar. So you have this authoritarian monarchy that was established because, hey, you know what? The king can be wrong back in the 1600s, but you know who can never be questioned? God. So let's use God as a weapon. So now you need an access point to God, aka the church, instead of you being able to just, like you were doing today, literally chilling in the sun, just enjoying life.
Right.
Like, how much spiritual does it, bro? Do you understand? That's so spiritual.
Right.
Connected in one, in unison. It's so beautiful. So that would be my opinion on that. But I'll let you guys continue. I love this guy. This guy, I'm telling you, this kid's on his journey.
This is this guy.
Yeah,
I like this guy too.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm sure that this is a podcast I would. Bye-bye, Luke. Yeah, this is a podcast I would definitely listen to. I mean, this is so far I'm learning a lot of new things. And Luke, I wanted to touch on death a little bit more because I feel like it's a very taboo subject, and I feel like personally I'm struggling with the idea of it. And you're older than me, you're much more experienced than me. I'd love to get your thoughts on it because I know a lot of young, hungry dropshippers are going to be listening to this and they're going to be thinking to themselves the same thought that comes to my head. You know what? I'm doing all this work. Why the fuck does it matter if I'm going to die? I'm doing all this work, but why does it matter if I'm going to die in 70 years? And if God and if this Christian like idea is good, why don't I just stick to myself, become like every average Joe, do good deeds, and not even enjoy my life? I wouldn't be happy with that. But I'm sure people settle for that. Why? Because they think that there's gonna be a better life afterwards just because they've done good deeds.
My answer to that is legacy, and like how, to me, like though I will die, I'm striving for immortality in my legacy. Like, I want to be remembered for thousands of years after I die, and I want my impact to live forever. And so, like, though my consciousness, it won't be Luca and I won't be here, remember, death is not a door closing, it's a door opening. And so I will be somewhere else in some other parallel universe, or in heaven, or whatever you want to think, or in the cosmos as fucking stardust, whatever it may be. That's fine with me, and I've accepted that. It's inevitable, so I can't fear the inevitable. You know what I mean? If not, I'm gonna drive myself mad and I'll try to kill myself. I've already been down that road. I don't want to go down that road again, right? I want to go and have a legacy, and I want people to, I want to die, and when I die, I want it to be like when Kobe died. Like, I want the world to stop. You know what I mean? Most people, when they die, you know what I mean? The bus still comes at 7:20. You know what I mean? The world keeps rotating. When Kobe died, even for 5 minutes, the world stopped. And like, Kobe's impact is forever. The mom mentality, like, that's somebody that, like, I realize, like, even if I die tomorrow, like, as long as I have like a legacy and I can impact people, and people can take my story and take my wisdom and take my journey and have that impact them. Obviously, I want to do a lot more than I've done now. I haven't done anything yet, but I think it's just legacy. And like, And then like, and like, though I'll die, like, you know, it's inevitable. I can't be afraid of the inevitable, you know, like that can't be what I'm afraid of. Like I want to live a life of purpose. And like in that purpose, I want to create a legacy that lives thousands of years after I die. And like, that is my motivation. And like, with that said, you can think about, well, I'm just going to die. This is all for nothing. I used to think of the same thing every single day, but like, that's not a life worth living. You know what I mean? And life is bigger than that. And I rather impact people and, you know, change the dynamic in which this world works, and feel that energy and feel that happiness and just elevate my consciousness so that when, you know, the lights shut off, you know what I mean? I'll be in a position where, you know, my life is not ending, but just starting, you know?
Do you think your legacy is determined by... Do you think that for a good legacy you need a lot of money?
That's a great question. I think for somebody like me, yes. I think there's an exception with artists, right? People who paint or people who sing or rap or whatever it is. I feel like that, because, you know, at the end of the day, like, music and art can affect people, though that person had money or not, could affect them for a very long time and can, you know, impact people for a very long time. But for somebody like a businessman, right? Like somebody like me who does business, yeah, for sure. Like I like, if I can't be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, I can't do the things that will grow my legacy. Now, does it mean that somebody who is a middle-class man, you know what I mean, helping mold people or, you know, delivering food to the homeless shelter, whatever it may be, does that mean he doesn't have a legacy? No, he has a legacy. But how long his legacy will live? Probably as long as the people he was helping, you know, as long as the people he was helping lived, and maybe their kids and maybe their kids, but after a couple of generations, you know, his name will be lost in the cosmos. You know, I want to live for a lot longer than a couple hundred years. I want people to look at me 2,000 years from now and I'll be like, damn, like, that's him. Like, Elon's one of those, right? Like, Elon is one of those few guys that like has cemented himself for thousands of years. You'll know about Elon Musk for 5,000 to 10,000 years. Guaranteed. Maybe for as long as the human race is alive. I genuinely believe this. You know what I mean? Probably even Bezos as well. I think space is really that final frontier. And those two guys who are pioneering space, I think they're like going to be those guys. Maybe even Gates. I think there's like 5 or 6 right now that are really, or maybe like 10 that could, you know, really last for thousands of years in terms of like huge global impact.
Elon's the richest man in the world.
Yes, sir.
It's money. Money allows him to do that. I'm sure we have a lot more. I'm sure we have a lot more. I'm sure we have a lot nicer people in the world. I'm sure we have a lot better, mentality-wise, better deeds done by people working on the minimum wage. But he's the richest man in the world, so he can concrete his name.
And the problem Elon's solving is the hardest problem to solve, and it's the most important. It's inevitable we have to be an interplanetary species. It's like not even a thing. Like, we as humans need to be interplanetary like species. It's not if, it's when. And if we can't do it, then we will die and we will be nothing. And any legacy and anything that I'm talking about is worth fucking crap in a bucket. It's worth nothing. You know what I mean? If we can't be, you know, men of and women of Mars and men and women of XJ 2000, you know, somewhere, you know, 100 light years away, then we're nothing. You know what I mean? And so for me, most important goal, objective, feat, and problem we have above everything else is being an interplanetary species. It solves all of our issues.
Well, that's completely, I mean, thank you so much for this podcast, Luca. I think we're approaching the hour mark, but I think that's a great place to leave it. Thank you so much for taking this up. It's a great opportunity, and I hope we get to do this again sometime.